Welcome back to Spotlight by the Intelligence. I have today with me Alan Salazar. Welcome, Alan. This is my trusted friend and mentor from SLDP. Can you give us a little background as to who you are and what you do?
So my name is Alan. I'm part of ZNZ. How Aaron and I met is through the school that I work at called SLDP, Salt Lake DJ and Production. Uh, we do lessons in DJing and also learning how to use Ableton Live. I've been producing music for about 12 years now, but really taking it serious the past 10 years. And same with DJing about 10 years.
I can personally attest to this. Before I came to know you personally, I was in attendance in the crowds at some of your earlier shows. I want to say in like the 2015, 2016-ish era.
Oh
So
yeah, yeah,
crazy to come into contact with you later on like this
yeah,
via
like almost a whole decade later. That's cool.
So you mentioned you are part of ZNZ. What is that?
So Z&Z is a duo that we formed back in October 2015. So it's comprised of myself and my friend Omar Jamor. Um, we've yeah, we've been active since 2015, just going strong. We've played in a bunch of different festivals here in Utah, a bunch of venues here in Utah. Also headlined a bunch of our own shows, and yeah, like our success has been like basically just due to all of our friends and fans supporting us through these years, and yeah, that's us.
So I have a little bit of insider knowledge as to this situation just from attending class with you, right? But one thing I
Right.
was really interested in is you and Omar's dynamic, right? Because you guys, it's rare that I've interviewed someone on behalf of a duo, and
Yeah.
you described to me this concept of you guys both having roles within Z and Z. Could you tell me more about like his specifically and yours specifically?
Yeah, so just a little bit of background with how we met. So in the summer of 2015, my boss at the time, he knew Omar, and Omar was looking for a teacher to teach him how to use Ableton and how to DJ. And so we met up and we had a couple lessons together, and uh, probably after a couple weeks, he proposed the idea of forming a duo together. And at the time, I was kind of hesitant because I had just started a new alias, and I was going for this like specific vibe, like just for myself. But he said, if the show does really well, like let's keep doing it. But if it tanks, we'll just go back to doing the lessons. And so I was like, okay, cool. And then our first show, we had we had about like 350 people come, and it was a lot of it was because Omar had done what's it called, like event promotion at this club called Circle Lounge, and he just knew a ton of people, and so we were able to market ourselves really well, bring in like some good DJ homies of ours, and then we had a really successful show, and so I was inclined to say yes, let's keep going. And so ever since then, yeah, we've had like specific roles where I was more of the music background, so I was in charge of the music and the sets, and 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 he was in charge of the marketing and like the social media and kind of like the more business side of things. And so that kind of like alleviated some of the pressure of like having a presence on social media and marketing ourselves, and then and so I was able to just focus on music and like focus on the sets. So that's kind of like our dynamic. Lately it's kind of shifted where like before I would it would just be me in my studio just working on music, but now it's kind of shifted where he's in the studio with me and we kind of like make the music together. And then and then we kind of both focus on like the marketing stuff and all that. Just kind of like over time, our roles have kind of just like meshed together.
I like it. So it sounds like you guys have learned a lot from each other, respectively. And
Yeah.
what I didn't want to give the impression that you both had like a lane you were supposed to stay in regards to the project. What I liked is that you identified. I hesitate to call it a deficiency, more of like a preference for not having to do all the social media marketing bullshit and event promotion stuff. So you found
Yeah.
somebody who did it well, teamed up with them, and proceeded to create something great with it.
Yeah.
And like in doing so, you also learn some of the adjacent skills. And it sounds like he's done the same thing, kind of piggybacking off the production that you had. So
Yeah.
for the record, I want to say Alan is an incredibly talented producer. And if you guys haven't listened to his music, you absolutely should go check it out.
Thank you.
What can you tell me about this role of event promoter? What does that mean?
Well, so when we first started, we were throwing our own shows where we would basically like rent out the venue and obviously we would be the headliners, but then we like bring on other of our friends to come DJ with us. And so that's kind of how we started and created our own demand, was by throwing these shows. And a lot of these shows were really successful. And so, people are in this industry are constantly watching, they're constantly looking for new talent, their new opportunities. And so our really successful shows started gaining a lot of attention. And so that's when we started getting booked at a bunch of different venues, like Sky, for example. When they first opened, my goal was to play there. And then I think about like 7 or 8 months later, we opened for this act called Made Monster, and that was I think that was like early 2016 when we played that show. So that was our first show at Sky ever. So yeah, that's like, as far as like event promotion, that's what we did. We still kind of do that every now and then, where we go to Sky and be like, hey, we want to play a show, or vice versa, they come to us. And basically we kind of like run the show. We pick who DJs in front of us, and we kind of go with like our own theme.
There's one thing you said that really stuck out to me, which is basically just like, I think a lot of up and coming DJs they sit and they wait for an opportunity to be handed to them, or they're reaching out to production companies and saying like, hey bro, put me on, or hey, can I send you a mix, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
You guys went ahead and just created the show without the third party, without the gatekeeping. In other words, you sent it straight for the show, and the people who would normally gatekeep you at the other end were like, oh shit, he's already doing it on his own successfully.
Yeah.
We might as well bring it on. What does it take to just up and throw a show?
It's pretty risky. I will say that us throwing a show on our own for the first time ever was a huge risk, because we didn't know like how many people were going to show up. It was our first time ever. The thing that was unique about that show in particular, I will give Omar credit. He has a lot of friends that were very willing to come, and also like the way we marketed it was, our first show ever was at this place called the Opium Lounge. Yeah, super super cheesy name, but it was above the hotel, which is now called Lake Effect. And so it was in like the upstairs area. I think they call it the Church now. That's like the name of the venue. But anyways, the way we promoted it was ladies free all night. And so that was kind of like I guess an incentive for people to show up. And also we had a lot of our friends share the event. And so our first show ever, we had 350 people. The next show after that, it was like 500, I think. And so, yeah, it's definitely a risk. I don't know if I would necessarily like recommend it to every person that's starting out to do that, because it's just a huge risk. Like you could be putting a lot of money into it, and then nothing good comes of it. But I would say in this day and age, the best way to get shows is to just really just put yourself out there and talk to everyone, send your mix, like have mixes ready to send to people, have a really strong brand, have a really strong social media presence, and have a lot of people that are willing to share your work and just get your name out there, because nowadays it's all about numbers. It's how many people you can bring, how many followers you have. And I know it's like it's so dumb. That's how things are, but that's just how things are. But also making sure that you have the skill and the talent as well, like there, because that's the other thing that people look for. Like even though people might say like, oh, that's like they're just booking people because they bring a lot of people. No, the talent will get you further than just numbers.
Okay, so let's let's unpack a little bit, right? So you talked about how throwing a show is risky, and it sounded kind of like the stars aligned for you in the sense of that, like you had this homie who was super well connected, and you guys mutually created this community endeavor to make this first show take off, and that
Yeah.
kickstarted things in a way that, like, perhaps the average person with less social connections wouldn't be able to pull off without taking a huge loss and becoming kind of disillusioned with the whole thing. So I do like how you've reframed it into like, here's what you should do on behalf of the average person. And I do think it's important that we emphasize the evil necessity of like numbers and other influencery bullshit that we have to do as artists to be noticeable, seen, hireable, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um, what do you guys have coming up that you see happening for ZNZ in the future? What's the next move you guys are making?
So I'm not sure if I can actually say this one yet. But we are working on a residency for the summer. So we'll be playing 4 shows this summer. It'll be like a monthly thing. But I feel like that's all I can say for now until it's officially announced.
Understood.
Yeah, and also we have a lot of music in the works. We've kind of taken a step back and really focused on like what kind of music we like to make. Just because in the past we've kind of branched out and done a lot of different types of music. Like we kind of went this like pop route, like we did like house music for a long time. But now we're kind of focusing on okay, what music do we play in our live sets, and what music does really well when we play it. And so that's kind of like our direction, just kind of playing music out and seeing like what people vibe with the most, and then like okay, like I feel like the music that we play is very ZNZ, and so we're gonna go that route and make that kind of music.
When you talk about this process of assessing how well people vibe with it, is it just like an intuitive feeling and a sense of watching people in the crowd and their visceral physical reactions to what
Yeah.
you're playing and mentally bookmarking like, oh, that one worked?
Yeah.
What are people vibing with right now?
Well, in this particular market, Utah, Salt Lake City, bass music always does really well. And I say that like an umbrella, but it's more like trap music, 140, dubstep, all that music does really well here in Utah. And so that's and when we play shows, that's kind of like the majority of the music that we make. Sorry, let me rephrase that. When we play that music, that's like the majority of what people like, and so we decided to start making that kind of music. Um, Although I will say that in the past we have done trap and dubstep, but we kind of like started branching out and started making like more melodic, more like poppy kind of stuff. And so now we're trying to go back to that and then just keep that ball rolling because of how successful it has been for us to play that music.
I like it. It shows awareness of what's important to stay ahead of when you literally work in that music scene, right? Like
Yeah.
for example, I spent a lot of time producing and living under a rock at the same time, in the sense of I was not at all taking a look at what kind of music was doing well. I was just making what I liked, and like, you know, it felt good to get the music out, but at the same time, I'm like, this is not something I can play at the club. So
Yeah.
I'm like, it's almost like research, in the sense of like standing behind the decks, dropping a dubstep tune, and watching somebody be like, and knowing that was one that fit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to be DJing to be doing research either. Like a lot of the times I go to shows and clubs and I'm like actively paying attention to what the DJ is playing because, I'm not going to be playing a show every single week. Uh and so I go out there and I actively listen to what they're playing, how they're playing it, what like top 40 songs are they mixing into the music, all these like different things. It's very much how I get inspiration, but it's also like I'm watching what's happening in the scene at the same time. I'm seeing like what's doing really well, what's not doing really well. Uh, like being in the crowd is probably like the best place to research crowd interaction because you're in the crowd. There's people all around you, and how people move, how people react. Are they jumping and screaming? Are they like getting low? Like all these different things are ways to see how people are reacting to the music.
I like this idea of analyzing other people's sets. I try to do it pretty consistently when I'm out now, and do a terrible job because my instinct is just to like have fun and vibe to some good music. I was talking to Are You Up, Brian, on this show, and he was
Yeah.
talking about an app on his phone that he would bring to shows, and he would tap along to figure out the BPM changes that the artists were doing mid set. And I was like, that's like actual field research. I
No,
was I was just so
literally.
impressed by the dedication to seeing what you can learn. And I guess like to pivot off of that, what I would ask is like, have you noticed any like gimmicks, tactics, techniques that DJs use that have really set themselves apart in ways that you've noticed that it made a clear difference?
So like, yeah, when like gimmicks and tactics of how people are playing music, is that
What about a set makes it especially memorable, other than
um
just like a good music choice?
yeah, well, this is kind of one of my mottos that I kind of made up for myself, but I feel like a lot of people agree with this. So a good DJ plays what people want to hear, but a great DJ plays what people didn't know they wanted to hear. And so mixing those two together, where you play like what I call like the hook, is gonna be popular music. So like anything that people can recognize very easily. So like I don't know, like Dancing Queen, for example, by ABBA. Like you play that song and everyone goes crazy for it, but then you mash it up with something that's hot and new, and like people go like wild. They're like, oh my god, what is happening? It went from Dancing Queen to this song I didn't even know I wanted to hear. And that's probably like top tier uh ways to like impress people in a set.
Sure, it's the auditory bait and switch. Like they thought it was good already, and you surprised them with something even better. I like
Yeah.
it. I guess I want to flash back to something you said earlier when we were
Mhm.
talking about. You said having it's important to actually have the skill and talent to back up the numbers and like whatever constitutes your like clout portfolio that gets you shows, right?
Mhm.
So like I wanted to talk about a little bit where the talent and skills were acquired. How did you learn to do what you did, and how did that eventually end up with you becoming a teacher in those subjects?
So it's funny because like my family is not very musical at all. Like none of my family members are especially talented in an instrument or singing or anything like that. And so a lot of my taste and I feel like talent has a lot of it has been just self-taught, where I would like pick up a different instrument. Yeah, like I started out with like violin and trumpet, and like started to learn how to play drums. Um, and so I don't know. I kind of think that, like, there's a saying that music is subjective, and so um, like one person's taste is not going to match every single person out there, and so when you're putting things together, like going back to this example of like Dancing Queen with ABBA, like it's your job as a DJ to find the right song that goes well with this. And so, it can go any which way you pick. And so if you pick a certain song and it works out really well, then you've done a good job of impressing somebody. And so and then that's kind of like the talent that I'm kind of talking about. And going back to what I said earlier, it was more of like having the talent will get you further. Having the skill and talent will get you further along, um, past like the numbers game. And so um, I lost my train of thought. Sorry.
But let me reestablish, right? So I
Yeah.
was just curious. You talked about this like history of being from a non-musical family. I can relate. I am the first musical instrument player in my family since my granddad, and
Mhm.
I got self-taught on guitar from Guitar Hero, and then took that to real guitar. That proceeded to become a 10-year career in teaching guitar lessons professionally that paid for my biochemistry degree, right? So it's like
Yeah.
self-teaching is legit. We can learn some useful, powerful, profitable information that we can teach to
Yeah.
others at that point. And I resonate with teachers because I am one at heart. So I
Mhm.
guess like with this self-taught knowledge, what made the biggest difference in your self-teaching? Like what helped you the most in learning as you taught yourself? And then what bridged that gap from knowing things, being self-taught, to becoming an instructor at SLDP?
Okay. Yeah. So um, I started learning how to produce back in 2012. And yeah, the very beginning, entirely self-taught. And uh, about 2 years in, I kind of felt like I was plateauing because I started out in FL Studio. I felt like I was plateauing in the program, and I couldn't figure out how to make music sound better. And this was just because I lacked the knowledge of all the tools that were in FL Studio. Back then there wasn't a whole lot of tutorials on YouTube. YouTube University wasn't, as big as it is now. And so I started looking around at other DAWs, and I found Ableton Live. But at the same time, I found a school that taught Ableton Live, and it was actually really close to my house where I was living at the time. And so I uh, bit the bullet and signed up, and and that school is SLDP. I started there in 2014, and that that really like propelled me like super far and super fast into like learning how to make music for real. Uh, just because I had like Derek sitting next to me and telling me what I was doing wrong. That's just kind of like an unparalleled way to learn, is that immediate feedback of you thinking you're doing something right and somebody else telling you no. It's kind of like rewiring your brain, basically. If you are completely entirely self-taught, and there's a possibility of getting into bad habits, and you continually build that bad habit until until it's completely subconscious, these things that you're doing. But having that like mentor beside you and telling you, no, this isn't the way to do it, this is how you do it, and then you see that like, oh my god, this is like so much better. Like that's just like, you know, that click, that moment where things start progressing. And so yeah, I over the years after that, it was kind of after I finished at SLDP, it was more and more self-taught. Like I feel like as a music producer, you're like a forever student. You know, there's always new ways to do things. There's always new plugins. There's new programs, even like new styles of music. Like this whole journey is entirely like you're a student forever. Um, I about 5 years ago, I felt pretty comfortable with what I've learned, and I had a lot of people coming to me asking if I did lessons, and you know, I said yeah to a couple of people, and started teaching them DJing and like producing, and I just like found this like hidden love for teaching people because I because that like fulfillment of like having everything that I know and putting it onto someone else, and just, you know, that like that moment of like being propelled straight into this knowledge, and having it click for other people is like super fulfilling for me. And so I just kind of kept that going and had like a bunch of different private students. And then about a year ago, I wanted to take the teaching more serious. And so I reached out to the place where I first started learning, and I hit up Derek, and I was like, "Hey, Derek, I want to get into teaching. Do you have any positions available?" And he's like, "Hell yeah, let's do it." And so, yeah, that was a year ago, and I'm still going strong at the teaching.
And I'm glad you are, because I got the chance to run into you. I took Alan's DJing course. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, no, I like. There's a there's mixed reception about SLDP that I would like to like ask around more about. But specifically, like I want like with my experience, I came into it with this degree of self-taughtness, right?
Yeah.
And the problem was is that like that degree of self-taughtness had also come with like 10 years of on and off Ableton usage, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
I have this preconceived notion that I'm supposed to be at a certain point already. So I actually skipped the MPAL course when I signed up at SLDP and went straight into ADV because I thought I was too good for it.
Mm-hmm.
Ended up learning just as much from the MPAL course when I interned on behalf and saw you teaching it. It's just
Mm-hmm.
that what I felt like SLDP does specifically for self-taught people is fills in the gaps. And it's
Oh
like you
yeah.
said about kind of like having that rewiring of having live instruction where you do something chronically one way and somebody with a little bit more experience is like, try it like this instead. Then it's just all of a
Yeah.
sudden things that didn't click before start to click. Things start making sense. So I feel like I don't know. I have a place in my heart for mentor types, right? Because it's like I like to be that for people, and I like to
Yeah.
have that fun for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I mean, going forward from there, it's like, do you see yourself pursuing more of a teaching route in the future, or like for you personally, ZNZ notwithstanding, like what kind of work do you see being most fulfilling for you long term?
Uh, yeah, I actually had dreamed of opening up my own studio. Uh, kind of my vision for it is having it kind of be like a public recording studio, but also like a place of learning. Um, and I want it to be very affordable. Like I'm talking like recording sessions that are like $25 an hour or something like that, because I just feel like a lot of studios like to charge a lot of money for these kind of services. um and so it's, you know, it's really only reserved to like that people that have money, you know, have enough money to like invest in this. And so it, to me, it kind of sort of feels like gatekeeping, right? All these people like want to have, they have all these good ideas, and they want to record a vocalist or record their guitar or whatever. I would want to be like a high quality, low cost studio. And it kind of seems like, saying that out loud kind of seems like, oh, how am I even going to get that? Like, I'm just going to like take in anybody. No, there would be a process of basically like proving, almost like proving your worth, where you send in a demo, you send in like a little story about yourself, and then there's like an approval process to get like some of the cheaper rates. And so basically, I wouldn't be accepting just anybody. It would be, people that I feel like could use this studio time to record what they need. And then also on the teaching side, kind of the same thing, where we would basically like vet people, be like, hey, like I have this, here's my project, here's what I'm about, like I don't have a lot of money right now, and if I approve them, boom, then they're in the program. And so yeah, I would probably want to do that in like a bigger city. And that's kind of like a little personal, but I'm trying to move out of Salt Lake. Like, I don't know when, but sometime soon. And then basically move to a bigger city, because bigger opportunities, but also like in the long run, I do want to open up a studio like this. This is kind of like one of my like big long-term goals.
Well, I want to say for the record, I'm in love with the idea, right? Because I think, like the way I see it, right? Like I have a studio that I'm sitting in right now, and I put it together over years of like making additional income teaching, right? And I feel
Yeah,
like part of the cost innate to it is just like how crazy fucking expensive some of this equipment is.
yeah,
Like you almost feel obligated to charge a certain rate just to pay off the like 6K mixer you got somebody using for like
yeah,
an hour here and there. But I especially like this idea of screening for people who are naturally talented and dedicated, because it's
yeah.
like there are a couple people there, like this concept of like a diamond in the rough, right? Where it's like
Hmm.
you have these people who they've got it, but they don't have opportunity. And so to be able to identify somebody who is committed, who has the capability to do it, but not the financial backing, and selecting them as like, hey, I know you could use this leg up. I mean, I'm 100% here for that. I no, that's like you're a sweetheart, Alan. Yeah, no, honestly, incredible answer right there. I guess I'm gonna move into some more general questions. I appreciate you
Okay.
being so upfront with me about like some of the more personal stuff, though. It's like I would be sad to see you leave Salt Lake, but it sounds like you are almost starting to like fill the box too much now and need like a bigger container.
Yeah,
Um,
I've definitely felt
like,
that way for a long time.
what do you what's been your experience with the internet so far? Like, how do you guys use social media? What platforms do you prefer to like release content on and like distribute music on?
So SoundCloud is great for beginners. It's honestly one of the best ways to connect with other artists, and also release remixes. Just because I think remixes are a great way to put your name out there. Uh, because if if you remix like a song that's really hot right now, there's going to be DJs that are going to be inclined to play it, and then basically like grow your fan base because of another DJ playing your music. So yeah, SoundCloud is a great one. Spotify, obviously, it's just everyone uses Spotify, so it's kind of one of those like no brainer. Like definitely get on Spotify. We've had a lot of great success on Spotify. Um, and then for social media, mostly Instagram these days. Facebook is I feel like it can be hit or miss for us. Um, and then TikTok for sure. Everyone also is on TikTok as well. I will say that with like what we've been doing is mostly Instagram, Instagram, SoundCloud, and Spotify. Those are basically the top three that we really focus on.
So obviously for the SoundCloud and Spotify, it's music, right? But on
Yeah.
behalf of like the Instagram, the possible Facebook, and the TikTok, what is it exactly that you're putting out?
What is it? Oh,
Yeah,
like what
like
kind of
what,
content?
like if someone looks you up on the internet, what are they gonna find?
So I will say that our Instagram has been a little weak, just because we did do a name change. It started out as Z space ampersand space Z, and we did that just because it was really hard for people to find us. Just the spaces and the ampersand just kind of just threw the whole search off. And so we changed it to ZANDZ, all one word. And that has done really well with helping people find us. So yeah, when the things that we've been posting so far have mostly just been show announcements. We haven't really talked about any releases that much because we have a lot of music that we're about to self-release, and so we're really focused on getting all that music ready, and then having a schedule to release all of it in a timely manner, just so we can have like just a constant flow of content coming out.
When
But yeah,
you I thought I heard you say you had music that you were going to self release. Did you like you have a release lineup coming out like time?
self
Oh,
release.
self release. Got it. So are you guys? I guess I don't want to ask too many questions that are like shrouded in mystery and on the DL, but it's like sounds like the slow leak of a potential album drop.
No album. Yeah, the with albums, the strategy is to have a label release albums. Just because they do a lot better when they're released on a label, just because they put a bunch of time and money into the promotion of it, and it just like overall it's usually just like a better look, especially at our tier, and how long we've been doing this. But that's not to say that people can get a 4-song album together and self release it. Like it's not necessarily a bad thing to do that. You are putting content out there, but they just do better when it's released with a label.
Okay, so labels is something that comes up on this show extremely frequently. Most of the guests that I speak to have signed with Lo-Fi Girl and some of these other like pretty heavy hitter lo-fi scene labels, and I ask them a lot what their experience is, what's the motivation for it. Do you have experience working with record labels? What's that been like for you? What has it done for you, if anything?
Yeah, so some of the big ones that we've released on, let's see, Lowly, Trap Nation, Magic, and yeah, those are like the top ones that come to mind immediately. Yeah, working with labels is pretty interesting. Actuation is the other one that we've released with. Yeah, it's pretty interesting because these labels they like to have like a specific brand, right? And by releasing music with them, you're going to be representing their brand, and so they can be pretty picky with how the music sounds. We have had times where we send something to someone, a label, and they really like it, but they wanted us to do like a slight little change, and we were open to it because the slight change that we made that they liked was something that represented both of us, so our brand and their brand as well. um and so yeah, with labels too, like they you have to like kind of strike deals with these labels, right? you have to you have to pick like how much percentage you're getting, how much percentage they're getting, and sometimes it kind of feels like you're getting screwed over, but the whole point of labels is to make yourself look more marketable and brandable, and then their ability to reach a lot of people with their promotion streams. And so it's kind of like you win some, you lose some with record labels.
Nope, that sounds exactly about what I've heard. It's like people, they say to keep a close eye on the terms and conditions because like some labels will ask for, they're like 50% off the top and then proceed to not do any marketing on behalf of the song.
Yeah.
And then, artists are like, what the hell am I paying you for? Like what makes you entitled to that portion of the royalty check? So for me, like what I'm trying to navigate with some of these questions is like, for up and coming artists who have never had a label release, like when is it worth it to pursue one, especially because of how much longer that can delay a song that's done past an individual self-release. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I try to help people kind of like arrive at this point of knowing when, where, and how to work with labels. And I guess I appreciate the feedback on it. Like for example, after listening to some of these label A&R execs, I reached out to some more EDM gaming oriented labels and then got picked up by a Cold Cats, which is like, Zeke and Cat, like local to us. And it's like, the way I see it, right, is like we as artists can like offer a gift to some of these labels, especially if they end up being people that we network with, and be like, here's something that could potentially make you a little bit of money that I made. And like in exchange, I get to know you guys better as friends. It's like we become business associates. It's like almost like strategic, but in a wholesome way, if you will.
Yeah.
That's my note on labels. You know, any more insider knowledge that you think helps people get accepted and know when they are getting a bad deal from a label?
Yeah. So kind of going back to how you're saying like when to pursue these kind of label deals, it's kind of hard to say like oh, this is when you should do it. It's more of like is your music, you kind of have to like pick the right label for your own brand too, and you just kind of have to just send music that you believe that they're gonna listen to and they're gonna like. And you kind of have to build up to that, right? You have to put out your own music. You have to keep up with your brand, keep up with your social media, because they look for all these things when they're listening to your music and decide to release your music or not. And so it's just kind of like when you feel like you're ready and you feel like your music is good enough, then you start going for those label releases.
You said something that really stuck out to me because I think a lot of people look toward, or a lot of people coming from the old school line of thought, I think before this indie music trend really took off, I think a lot of people look to a label as almost like their first release. That's how they know that they're good enough to have music that's marketable. I really liked what you said about having had to build your socials and had to build your independent catalog before you even consider label releases, because that's something that they're going to want to see already present before they consider you.
Yeah.
So yeah, excellent feedback. I guess if you'll let me continue with some of the more boring general questions, like when you decide to start a song, like what inspires you to start it, and then how do you proceed to work on it from
there? I kind of draw inspiration from a lot of different streams. It could be like a song that I heard. It can be a song that I heard at a club, or somebody playing at a club or a festival. Or it could be like a song that I just like made up in my head while I was taking a shower. And so I'm pretty good about like acting upon these like bursts of inspiration. And so sorry, can you repeat the question, the second part?
Let's say you have an idea, right? How do you put pen to paper, but like digitally? How does your idea become a song?
Yeah, I get straight into Ableton and I just have the song playing in my head, have this idea playing in my head. And I mostly just start off with samples. So like finding samples that kind of sound like my idea, just to kind of get like a overall like skeleton or like a blueprint going. Because the faster you get this idea out of your head, the the more like carbon copy it's gonna be. And so I try to just act really quick and just put these ideas out, and then kind of like start getting more creative with it as I'm building the song. I start bringing in new ideas and new sounds, but I'm also keeping in mind like the end goal. Like, what's the end goal of the song? What genre do I want it to be? What, like, is it going to be a hype song? Is it going to be a chill song? Just to give yourself that like limitation, because without these limitations, it's going to be pretty fatiguing as you go through the song. Not having like a specific direction to go, just because, you know, with the music and making music in a DAW, you're just kind of like looking at like a blank page and an endless void of any direction you can go.
Sure, it's like option paralysis times infinity, right? Because you can do anything, you can do nothing.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
I'm really fond of the idea of giving yourself constraints to operate in to force creativity. I find myself doing much better under those circumstances than the 100% blank canvas.
Yeah.
How do you know when a song's done?
How do I know when a song's done?
Yeah.
Oh, so I have this thing where I it's like kind of like another motto. It's strive for 99. So if you're, you know, this really helps people that are perfectionist. Strive for 99 is basically like getting your song to 99% and then calling it good. I've been pretty good about like knowing when a song is done, and like knowing when a song is done is kind of like this feeling of I don't know, kind of this feeling of like completion, but like satisfied completion. Like, okay, this is good enough. We're gonna stop right here. Yeah, it's purely like a feeling, a thing of feeling.
I wish I was more familiar with the feeling you describe. I say this as a chronic perfectionist, like to my own detriment, right? Like I
Yeah.
will get a song to 99% and then have listened to it so many times that now I hate it and reinvent it from the top to bottom, and the process starts all over again. It's like I guess to pivot off what you said, you know, you talk about being in tune with your intuition, about like having a good sense of like when it's good enough to call it. Um, what other things do you think workflow wise really help that other people who are making music could benefit from? What tactics do you use to stay productive?
So in the music making process, there is such a thing as fatigue. Like, you can't go, you know, 4 or 5, 6 hours straight sitting at the computer. Like we're all human. We all have limitations. Uh, and so it's something I do is I'll take breaks, you know, every 15-minute breaks to get up, stand up, walk around, maybe even like listen to other music. Um, I sometimes I like to go online and on YouTube and just like watch YouTube tutorials like in the middle of like a music session, because I'll just like see other people making music and you know, learn something new, and then immediately apply that new thing that I learned into the song I'm making, and it's just like, you know, it just streamlines the creative process like really well doing that.
No, I couldn't agree more. Honestly, some of my favorite of my own personal work came from a specific technique I learned from one YouTube video that I built an entire song around because I liked it so much. I was able to spin it in eventually into my own patch with enough alteration. You know what I mean? But it's like
Yeah.
it revolves around that concept of a new thing I learned. Like, here's my take on that thing.
Mm-hmm.
Love it. I'm gonna start to drive this interview to a close. I really appreciate the time you've dedicated for this. I feel
Of
like
course.
I have I am very lucky in the sense that I've gotten to learn a lot more from you than most. But I think this will be so helpful to other people who are also looking to learn the same things. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess what I would ask you is, like, in general, if you had like if you had to summarize some advice you would give to an early musician just starting out, what is going to benefit them the most in your opinion?
For a starting musician, I would say to start your brand and be really clear with the intentions of your brand, how you're going to present yourself, what your social media presence is gonna be like, what your music is gonna be like, and then setting goals of like how many songs you want to release in a year, how many shows you want to play within a year. Um, yeah, basically have this timeline ready before you even start releasing music or making music. Uh, I think it's really important to have these guidelines because it's just, or you're basically being organized with your goals, and like having achievable goals will give you a lot of momentum and a lot of drive over the long run. um I want to add something else to it. I think as a producer, when you're starting out, i think I think that uh as far as like the music making process goes, I always recommend to some of my newer students to not release not release any music for like the first like 6 months or a year, because uh that time of making music will help you find your brand, help you find your sound, and by the time you make your, I don't know, 100th song, it's going to be way better than the other 99 songs. And so and so starting off your brand really strong is going to be very good for you, because it'll basically force people to see you as somebody taking their craft serious. And I say this because there's been a lot of times where producers, they get really excited and they launch their brand, they create their SoundCloud, and then they start releasing music that's, not quite there. And so, when people come across this music, they're going to be like, oh, it's just another, like amateur guy, messing around with sounds or whatever. But, if you're a producer that's really trying to be serious about this, take your time, find your sound, and start off really strong.
Cool. That's words to live by and runs completely at odds with everything I've heard before, which was just get it out there. So you are the first person to say like, hey, have patience, wait till it's actually ready before you get it out there. I think it's as a person who provides critiquing feedback to people's music as like one of my many music related gigs, it's interesting to hear hang on to it, wait until it's good enough. Just because I think a lot of people have such a hard time getting past like that first step, putting music out, that they'll sit on things indefinitely, right? But I think it
Yeah.
speaks to the other side of the coin of like, like, have you listened to it while honest with yourself? Like, I know it's your first song, but like for a first song, is it passable? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I feel like I made exactly the mistake you were talking about of releasing half-cooked music on SoundCloud very early on, being disappointed with the turnout, and then rethought my branding when I started again on Spotify. And like
Hmm.
went with music that was like professionally mixed and mastered, engineered, and it made a huge difference in how people like saw what I was putting out.
Yeah.
So I do think you have highlighted something really important there. Alan, where can people find you? How can they stay connected, reach out? Like how can they find about your music and your playing opportunities and teaching potential?
Yeah. So on SoundCloud, it's ZANDZ official, and on Instagram, it's ZANDZ music, and
Cool.
uh, and on Spotify is just Z and Z, ZANDZ. So that's That's our new Spotify that launched, but we still have our old Spotify is active as well, and that one is Z space ampersand space Z.
So sounds like you guys are right in the middle of a minor rebrand. That sounds like such a pain in the ass. I'm sorry to hear about that.
Yeah, it's for the better. Just yeah, it was just really hard to find our music with the old spelling. Luckily, with like the rebranding, a lot of our socials were already ZANDZ, you know, because you can't have an ampersand in a URL. So
Right.
and so it was pretty easy to like rebrand that.
Well, I'm glad it turned out to be better than it could have been, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Alan, thank you for an incredible interview. I'm going to let you go, boss. It was absolutely a pleasure. I look forward to speaking
of
with you again.
course. Yeah, this was
Take care,
fun.
boss.
Thank you for this.